Right. Okay. Put her over there. Good morning. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order, and just great to see so many smiling faces out there today. Thank you guys for coming to our meeting today. The Texas Government Code permits this Board of Trustees to meet in a closed executive session for the following reasons, among others: to consult with the college district's attorneys on matters deemed privileged by the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct or Government Code 551.071, to deliberate regarding real property under 551.072, a prospective gift under 551.073, certain personnel matters under 551.074, security devices or security audits under 551.076, and economic development negotiations under 551.087. If the board meets in closed session, we will announce the particular section under which we will be doing so prior to initiating the closed portion of the meeting. Okay, we're going to now have our invocation and pledge, and we've got Mr. Cash Crawford from Roanoke, an engineering major, and Ms. Stephanie Lanenegger from Lexington, a mathematics major. Thank you for being here.
Would everyone please bow your head and close your eyes? Heavenly Father, you have given us responsibility for this college and for who work, teach, and study here. Help us to take up this responsibility with honesty, integrity, respecting the gifts that each brings to our common endeavor. Send your Spirit to be with us in this meeting so that the discussions and decisions that are before us will be infused with the values we proclaim. We gratefully acknowledge your presence in our lives and in the life of this institution. We commit ourselves to continuing search for the deepest meaning of the mission you have entrusted to us. We know that you are with us as you have been throughout our history, and so we go forward with confidence. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Now, now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Now for the Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much for being here this morning. Okay, it does not look like anyone signed up for public comment, so we can move on from that portion to the report section, and the Chancellor will deliver the Chancellor's administrative report.
Thank you, Chair Colcourse. Good morning, everyone. Trustees, it's so nice to be back with you after a little bit of a summer break. And for those in the audience, thank you so very much for your presence today. It means a lot to the administration. It means even more so to our Board of Trustees. If it's all right with you, trustees, I'd like to move to the podium to give my report because I do have quite a number of recognitions to make today. Make sure that turns on for me, please. Thank you. Well, trustees, I'm going to remind you of some good news that perhaps you may have forgotten. But last January, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board published the academic transfer rate for all community colleges. And once again, Blinn has the highest academic transfer rate of all the 50 community colleges in the state. And that rate is 48.1%. That's the highest it's been certainly since I can remember. Just for comparison, so that you'll be aware of this, the actual average of the other community colleges academic transfer rate is 25.4. 25.4. Blinn is at 48.1. The reason that I highlight this morning is because this takes a lot of hard work from everybody, from you as trustees for the leadership and the policy decisions that you make, to the administration and the cheering that we do. But the hard work happens from our faculty and staff, and then of course, most directly from the students who attend Blinn College. So I am pleased to tell you today that we are joined by a number of faculty and staff that I would like to recognize. Let me begin with 6 faculty and staff who recently were recognized with National Institute for Staff and Organizational Development. The acronym is NISOD, N-I-S-O-D. And NISOD chooses individuals who are just excel in so many ways. And they go through a competition after their name is submitted, and they are ultimately selected to be a finalist and then a receiver of the Nysar Excellence Award. This award is dedicated to student success, obviously. And the membership, particularly of Nysar, it focuses on academic excellence. It focuses on celebrating teaching and learning and leadership, either at a technical college or at a community college. Well, since 1989, NYSOD Excellence Awards have recognized many educators who demonstrate outstanding commitment to their students and to their colleagues. This year's NYSOD honorees for the NYSOD Award from Blinn are, and I'd like for you to stand and remain standing as I call your name, Dr. Benny Graves, Dean of Title IX, Institutional Diversity and Equity. Jonathan Hicks, Social Sciences Professor. Dr. Leslie Yannick, English Professor. Dr. Doug Pierce, Agricultural Sciences Professor. And I don't believe she was able to join us today, but I'd like to recognize her. Sheila Sigmund, Library Administrative Assistant. And then Jennifer Taylor, Assistant Police Chief. Won't you stand and just acknowledge, excuse me, don't stand, but won't you join me in applauding them? Thank you. And at this time, I would like to introduce Dr. Joyce Lanenegger, Joyce, you have mentioned and seen and heard from before, and she is our Executive Director of Academic Success, and she's here to share more information regarding the nomination process and then a little bit about each of our honorees. And then finally, in her remarks, we'll ask these award winners to come forward as we usually do. And trustees, if you will kind of scooch together behind the dais, we'd like to take a picture. So Dr. Lanenegger, won't you come forward at this time, please?
Thank you, Dr. Hensley. Chair Colcourse and trustees, I am very pleased today to tell you a little bit more about our Nysar recipients. They were nominated by students and their faculty and staff colleagues in recognition of their outstanding contributions to Blinn College. The final selections were based on recommendations from their departments or divisions and by our Professional Development Funding Committee. I'm going to let them get a workout today, so I'm going to ask each of you to stand as I call your name. And allow me to introduce Dr. Benny Graves, who has been described as a leader who exemplifies commitment to outstanding student success and outcomes. Professor Jonathan Hicks, who receives fantastic reviews from his students and whose classes are always in high demand. English Professor Leslie Yannick, who is viewed as a tremendous asset to Blinn College, both as a teacher and a colleague. Agricultural Sciences Professor Doug Pierce, who has built Blinn's Agricultural Sciences program into the largest two-year agricultural program in the state and founded the college's nationally recognized livestock judging teams. Library Administrative Assistant Sheila Sigmund is valued for her willingness to design and change processes for improved outcomes. And Assistant Chief of Police Jennifer Taylor is described as giving students valuable help in extraordinary circumstances and living her belief that when safety is a priority, education thrives. Thank you.
He's in here. Yeah.
One, two, three, and just one more time. One, two, three. Perfect. Thank you.
Benny? Congratulations.
We have so many wonderful faculty and staff at Blinn. This college is so blessed to have such excellence within our perimeters. And we have more to recognize today and more people who are being honored for their wonderful service and excellence. So we have 4 Blinn College professors who are being recognized as Teaching Excellence Award winners. Each nominee was honored and nominated by a fellow faculty member or a student. Their application then was considered by a committee of faculty and administrators, including the prior year's Teaching Excellence Award winners. This year, Blinn recognized, I'm going to ask you to stand, please, and remain standing, Parallel Studies Professor Dr. James Lanfrey, Teaching Excellence Award winner for part-time faculty. Communications Professor Tracy Mattis, award winner for the Brenham, Schulenburg, and Sealy campuses. Speech Professor Dr. Melissa Meek, award winner for the Brazos County campuses. And Physical Therapy Professor Trixie Roy, award winner for technical education. At this time, I again would like to ask Dr. Lanenegger to share more information about these wonderful, excellent winners.
Thank you, Dr. Hensley, Chair Colkhorst, and trustees. I am really proud to introduce to you our 2022 Teaching Excellence Award recipients. Each of our nominees for the Teaching Excellence Award is asked to answer the question, why do you teach? I would like to share with you a portion of each recipient's answer to that question. Honorees, if you would, please stand as I call your name. Parallel Studies instructor, Dr. James Lanfrey, is spending his third, possibly fourth retirement with Blinn College. Dr. Lanfrey teaches reading to pay it forward because of the teacher dedication, caring, and commitment that he believes fostered his own academic and career success. Promoting success for all is his reason for teaching. Communication professor Tracy Modis was described by her nominator as the student whisperer because of her incredible ability to elicit positive student responses and behavior. Professor Modis teaches because it is really so much fun to meet her students, to hear their stories, and to confirm that they matter and that their voices are heard. Communication professor Melissa Meek is described by a colleague as one of those rare instructors who can nurture any student and help them grow into the best version of themselves. She teaches because teaching allows her a way to make the world a better place, one student at a time. Physical therapy instructor Trixie Roy is described by her student nominator as being kind, non-judgmental, giving, and hip. Although initially she was somewhat uncertain about teaching rather than being in practice, she now sees teaching as an opportunity to help shape physical therapy students into caring and ethical practitioners. Thank you. We always talk about our hair being.
Yeah. Congratulations. Good to see you. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you all. I'm so proud of you. I tell you that every time I see you, but I want to make sure that everybody who's listening to this presentation and on the video today hears my words. You make Blinn. And so please tell your colleagues that you work with how proud of them we are. And then trustees, I'll be recognizing them at convocation on Thursday as well. And this is convocation for all faculty, both adjunct and full-time. So we'll do some more recognitions for them at that time there. Trustees, if you're all right, I'd like to go ahead because I still have more to say and more people to introduce. I'm just going to stay from this location if that's all right, but I would like to direct your attention, if I might, to the slides because I'd like to give you the facilities report. We do continue to experience global supply chain issues. They are continuing to impact now almost every one of our construction projects. There's been literally nothing that has been escaping this one at this point. So I'd like to give you a little bit about where we are on each one. Our staff are working closely with our construction partners to identify solutions for these problems and to try to minimize or avoid as many delays as we can. So let's start with Leroy Dryer Field. The shipment of rooftop heating and cooling units has been postponed, and the facilities department is engaged in discussions with the construction manager at risk to minimize whatever delays we may have in the future. Now, the rough-in for the plumbing, the gas, and the electrical are in process, and the contractor has begun to install the insulation and the drywall. The glass storefront has been delivered and will be installed soon, and the finishes in the restrooms and the concession area are right now in progress. The baseball team will be able to practice at Dryer Field throughout the fall, and Blinn's facility staff are working with the new baseball coach, Dusty Hart, to develop alternative plans should potential delays of being able to play impact any of our fall games. Now let's go over to Old Main. At the Old Main building, work is substantially complete, and the staff have already begun moving into this facility. The faculty offices are ready for their return to campus tomorrow, and all faculty and staff are scheduled to be moved into this facility by the end of this month. And the upgrades to the elevator, however, will not be scheduled until December during our winter break. And then over to the Bryan Administration Building. Trustees, due to increases in building supply and construction costs, we do continue to work with the architect on the design of this building. The college is working with the design team now. In fact, we had a lengthy meeting yesterday afternoon and with the contractor, and we anticipate bringing to you a final design sometime later this fall. And then over to the Rellis Administration Building. At the Rellis Campus Administration Building, we have received our certificate of occupancy, and the contractor is completing now our punchline items. As you know, we will celebrate the grand opening of this facility at 10 a.m. on Friday, August 19th in the third floor banquet room. So this may be, trustees, your first, perhaps your only grand opening under air conditioning. You'll be inside. That's got to be a first, I think. I believe maybe Lori and others have gotten in touch with you, but we're going to do essentially 2 ribbon cuttings on Friday. We'd like to have all of you in front by this flagpole that you see in this picture promptly at 9:30. We'd like to take a photo at 9:30. Now, there may be people who are arriving, but we'd like to get an outdoor photo of the ribbon and the flags and the official opening at 9:30 Friday morning. Allow yourself some time to park and walk over to this building. You will be parking in the Texas A&M large parking lot. We have bought a block of parking, so you will not have to pay. So don't worry when you see the little mobile electronic vehicle that looks like he's a beetle with feelers coming out and capturing your license plate so that it can fine you if you don't pay. We will not be charging anybody for location there. So you're welcome to park in the A&M parking lot. We do have some limited parking behind this building that are reserved only for Blinn faculty, staff, and you, so you have your choice. But I encourage you, please be there promptly on time at 9:30 so that Rich Bray can take a quick photo, and then you can go inside and get ready for the festivities that'll start at 10. And we're really looking forward to welcoming our faculty and staff and members of the community with this partnership that we have with the Texas A&M University system and the completion of this building. I think you will be wowed. It has all of the newest technology that you can imagine in there, and it's different. When you go in, you can see from the outside it looks a little different, but when you go in, you won't be able to figure it out. It's not just your stacked floor on top of floor building where you can predict what you're going to see on each floor. So as I have you look at this picture right now, you'll see the big blue tower that does light up at night also. And if you look at that very top glassed area in that tower, that's where Chris Mars, our executive dean, is going to be located just off to the right of that. And then if you'll go over to the first floor and then to the far left as you're looking at the picture, that is our student services area. Now, they don't actually move until the first week of September. We're trying to leave them alone as we're, going through the final push for enrollment. So they won't necessarily be operating fully, but I do want you to see that. And then there is a sidewalk between that far left side and then directly into the Schwartz building. And then at the front of the building, you see some visitor spaces. But for those trustees who were on the board at the time that we commissioned the partnership with Texas A&M University System, you may recall that we had a partnership with A&M that they would build the parking lot and then they would reap the fees from that. And so do park in that large parking lot. It parks more than 1,000 cars, and then just walk over. So allow yourself maybe an extra 10 minutes if you could be in the parking lot by no later than 9:20, and then be ready for the photo at 9:30. And then I think we'll all run upstairs and start the celebration. Trustees, I'd like to now get to what to me is always the bittersweet part of my report, and that is recognizing so many who have contributed so many years to Blinn College. And this is, a happy time for them, and a happy time for us as we, try to send them off knowing how much we have loved and appreciated their presence at Blinn. But boy, we always miss them so much, and it's hard to fill some of these shoes. So I have a number to recognize today, and we are joined by 5 employees. I'm not sure if the 5th one has come yet. I think we have just 4 maybe we're going to recognize today. But in total, their years of service to Blinn is 104 years, 104 years. So I'd like to tell you about them and about their careers, as I always do before we take their photo. And I'd like to start with Kim Becker. And Kim, if you would just come stand over here. Thank you. Right by Trustee Ehlert, while I talk about you and embarrass you thoroughly. Kim has announced her retirement, trustees. She's going to retire at the end of this month. And she has been with Blinn College for 24 years. 24 years. And she was hired in July of 1998, and she was a laboratory coordinator after an almost 20-year previous career as a medical lab technologist with Texas A&M University and with St. Joseph's Health System. Well, after she'd been at Blinn, then she became the business operations coordinator for business and mathematics. And Kim was also named a 2021 Nysar Excellence Award winner. So she received the award that you just saw for this year, but she got it in 2021. And Dr. Charles Smith, her dean, who is here today, he's the dean of business and mathematics, said that Kim is an outstanding worker, always committed to her job, and always willing to help with any task. Kim, thank you. It's hard to say goodbye, but we thank you for your 24 years of service to Blinn on top of your previous 20 years. It's really something that you have contributed so much of your life to our college and to higher education, and we thank you so very much. We wish you the best in your retirement. Don't forget us, come back soon, and you helped to get us through the pandemic, and we're so grateful for that. But I know that our trustees would like to have an opportunity to thank you personally. So trustees, if you would please stand, and Trustee Colquist, at your convenience, would you come forward as well? And I think we'll have Trustee Colquist perhaps say hello and give you a little something, and then Kim will take your picture and wish you well. Kim, if you could join us for just a moment, and I'll turn the mic to Chair Colquist.
Congratulations. That is a long time serving Blinn College. On behalf, has it? Well, just come on back if you'd like to. On behalf of this board, thank you. Good. And we've got a watch. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Kim, is there anything that you would like to say this morning?
Yes, it's been a huge growing experience over the years. Never think that you're ever too old to learn something new, because it's working for Blinn has been like that. It seems like there's always an avenue to take to enhance your growth. And starting here back in the 90s, when Bryan campus was just 3 buildings, and being able to witness that and meet so many people along the way, it's just been wonderful. And I just hope that I've left some legacy. I think that's everybody's hope, that if they spend that much of their life dedicated to an institution, that I've left a mark somewhere, I hope. And again, I won't forget everybody. It's been a great journey, and maybe someday I'll be able to come back and visit. No promises, though.
Thank you. So let's take a photo, maybe about here.
Yes.
Please, any family members, please bring with you, and also the dean, Charles, please come on up and join us.
This is my daughter. She graduated from Blinn's nurse.
I'd like to introduce our next retiree trustees, and this is Jean Daniels. And Jean, will you come forward, please, and stand next to Trustee Ehlert? Well, trustees, Jean has, where is Jean? Is she not here? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to tell you about her anyway, okay? And then we can say that we all talked about her in a very positive way. Well, Jean announced her retirement. Now, she has been at Blinn for 12 years, and she is a drama instructor for the Bryan campus, and she came to Blinn in August of 2010, and she had previously served as an assistant professor at Texas A&M University, Kingsville, and also as a visiting assistant professor at Texas A&M University. And as an instructor, she taught not only theater and classes, but also she played a key role in guiding and directing Blinn Bryan's campus student productions. And if you haven't gone to any of those, please make a point to do so this year. Those productions are amazing. Now, Debbie Vavra is her dean here, so at least Debbie, maybe you could stand and we'll recognize you on behalf of her. And Debbie said that she thanked Jean for all of her work and all that she did for Blinn's theater arts students and all the many productions that she participated in and helped to produce during her many years here. So trustees, let's give a round, and hopefully she'll hear about it, that we applauded her for her 12 years of service to Blinn College. Thank you. And now I'd like to ask Pat Cole to come forward. Yes, you are just moving great. And thank you for, Pat, if you would just stand right next to, just because I want to make sure everybody can see you prominently, Pat, and thanks for coming to our grand opening on Friday too. Okay, here's another tough one, trustees. You ready for this number? 30 years of service to Blinn College. 30 years, and he has been the director of our Brenham Campus Learning Center. 30 years, my gosh, that's just amazing. And Pat was the founding director of the Brenham Campus Learning Center, and in that role, he has coordinated tutoring and testing services for 3 decades. Amazing. And Dr. Joyce Lanenegger, who you know, noted that education is a family affair for Pat. His son Dylan works as a tutor in Blinn's Bryan Campus Learning Center. And he will continue the Coles family tradition, right, of excellence and working at Blinn College and helping so many students. Pat, it's just amazing when I have the opportunity, and I know the trustees feel this way, to thank somebody for giving their entire career and life, 3 decades of service to one institution, which says to you most fondly and with tremendous gratitude, thank you, and thank your family, and best wishes to Dylan. And I hope we're all still here to shake his hand when he retires in 30 years, but I doubt it. Pat, on behalf of the Blinn Board of Trustees and all of the administration and all of our faculty and staff, and most importantly, all the students you intertwined with on an individual and personal level, on one-on-one level, you have affected so many people's lives that we will never know about, but you did, and you have, and for that we are most grateful. So Pat, please take our appreciation with you into retirement. Come back anytime you'd like. You came to the Prairie League grand opening. Come on over to the Rellis one if you'd like on Friday. And I know our trustees would like to have an opportunity to thank you as well. So trustees, if you would mind, please standing and shaking his hand.
Start having fun now.
And Pat, I know that Trustee Colcourse would like to make some remarks as well.
We have, and well, you know, having a college student myself at this point and understanding how much tutoring means to helping a kid get through a class, you know, thank you for what you've done to help so many kids through the years be successful here at Blinn College. And I know the board seconds that. So thank you and congratulations. And we've got, again, a certificate and a watch for you. And again, thank you.
And Pat, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yes, there is. I am a 4th generation Brennamite. I have lived here almost all my life, a few divergents. But I came back to Brenham to live. Fortunately, there was a position available at Blinn, which I applied for and got 30 years ago. I'm sorry, that amazes me as much as probably amazes a lot of y'all. But I look out here and I see familiar faces, people I've worked with for years. And I've always told people, Blinn, yes, it's a junior college. It's a center of education for this area, but it's also a community. It's a community of people who know each other, who work with each other, who support each other in our endeavor to educate the young people of this area. And that there's no greater reward for me than that. Thank you, Jim. Thank you. And thank y'all for being here.
And we'll take a photo.
Thank y'all.
Thank you so much. John Schaefer, won't you come forward, please? Hey there. Trustees, John Schaefer has announced his retirement after another 30 years. 30 years. He joined the faculty in January of 1992, 30 years ago, in addition to teaching English classes throughout his tenure at Blinn. He serves as Assistant Academic Dean for the Division of Humanities. And in 2020, He too was named a Nysar Excellence Award winner. Dean of Humanities Pat Westergaard said that a faculty member recently called John the division's Rock of Gibraltar due to his reliable study leadership and support for his colleagues. John, I'll bet you remember, but I'm going to share this with those who are listening. The first faculty member who came to see me when I very first came to Blinn and moved into my office in the first couple of days was John Schaefer, trustees. And I think it's fair to say, at least from my perspective, that it was like instant love. This was a man that I could tell was of stature and substance and was a real leader among his professional colleagues in the teaching and learning and education field. He was just a delight, a real wonder. And he knows, I think, that he is kind of has a special place in my heart from that very first moment. And so it's hard for me not to just throw this mic down and not run over there and give you a bear hug like we usually do when we see each other. And John, I know your wife retired from Blinn a few years ago too, and I warned you at that time, now don't you get those thoughts about retiring. We kind of had a deal, you know, when you go, I go, or when I go, you go, but we're going to stay together. So fiddle on you. You decided 30 years was enough, and I say that lovingly. You hold my great admiration. Always will, always have, and I think you know that. So trustees, I'd like to announce to you John Schaefer, who will be a tremendous loss for Blinn College and for the division, but we wish him well, and we hope that you go with great joy and have all kinds of fun things to tell us about and send pictures about as you go into the next stage of your life. And John, thank you so very much, and I know that the trustees each would like to have an opportunity to shake your hand. And I know Trustee Colcourse would like to say some words.
On behalf of the board, we've got a little certificate and a watch. And I got to say, these 30-year guys are looking pretty good. So I'm not sure that you know, like I said, just welcome back if you decide to change your mind. But on behalf of the board, again, thank you for all your efforts through the years.
Thank you. And John, would you like to have the opportunity to make some remarks?
I think 30 years, I've said enough.
You're so cute. All right, let's take a photo if we might. John, at least introduce your family.
Marlena, my daughter, and Cheryl, my wife.
Cheryl's the one I was talking about who already retired. John, did you notice I didn't tell him what we talked about in that first meeting? Do you remember? I remember all of it, every word. Okay, trustees, I have one more retiree that I'd like to recognize. This is Pat Westergaard. Won't you please come forward, Pat? Did she come forward or did you walk out on us? Oh, Pat. This one was a surprise. I was on vacation for a week and I got a note that Pat was going to retire and my jaw dropped. And she is just such an integral part of Blinn. And so I'm just so happy for you that you're able to do this at this time. So congratulations. Well, Pat has been with us. She came right when I came to Blinn. So she has had 8 years of service at Blinn College. And actually, I think you came maybe the year before I came. We came together almost exactly. So we had this newness and this bondness of coming to Blinn and working together and not knowing a lot of people. And so it's so nice to be able to have shared these last years with you, Pat. So trustees, she came to Blinn in January of 2014. And I came in 2015, so you are 1 year older in service than I. But she has been the Dean of Humanities, and she previously served at Clarendon College, and she also served at the John F. Kennedy School in Berlin, Germany. And also, right before she came here, it was Navarro College, I believe, correct? Her supervisor is Dr. Marcelo Busicki, and he is thankful, as we all are, for her service to Blinn. He said that as a dean, Dr. Westergaard led her division with passion, clarity, and grace. As a colleague, she initiated discussions and encouraged our academic affairs team to think creatively and consider unexplored paths. And that was so accurate. Pat, thank you for your outstanding years of service to Blinn College. You have had an impact on the division. To have both you and John leave the division at the same time, I'm sure they're just going, oh my, because both of your presences have been wonderful for the college and for the Bryan campuses and for all of our campuses, and your service has been terrific. And you, I believe, have really made a wonderful change agent for the division and for many of the academic initiatives at Blinn College. So thank you so very much. We appreciate your service. We hope that you enjoy your retirement. I happen to know you have a swimming pool in your backyard. So if you don't travel, I know at least where to find you when it's on the warm days. Pat, I know our trustees would like to thank you personally. So won't you let them have the opportunity to express their appreciation to you?
Pat, congratulations on your retirement. Clarendon to Berlin. Now that's a big swing right there. Well, have fun in your retirement. Again, you're always welcome back. I look at, all this experience retiring, and it scares me a little bit. So I'm hoping that our recruiting is going well and we're getting good replacements for these wonderful people. But thank you so much on behalf of the board. Thank you for what you did for Blinn College.
And Pat, do you have anybody that you want to invite up here?
Yes, and I do want to say, I leave behind so many qualified leaders, and there are others behind me that will step forward and do better, even more passionate than I have been. And it has been an honor to work with each of them, and so proud of our faculty. They're so dedicated and fearless, and COVID showed us they should all have capes for sure. So I'm going to ask those of you in the humanities, the Lampreys, and also Dr. Kincaid and John and Dr. Busicki, I'd love to have you in my picture as well. So if you would join me, please.
Thank you. Y'all come on down. And there's your watch, Pat. April, would you, or John, would y'all grab her watch and her certificate and get it to her? Trustees, there are special board meetings where we take and appreciate the time that you allow us to recognize so many who have contributed so much to Blinn in excellence, in awards, and in their service for so many years to Blinn. So thank you for allowing a little extra time as we begin the fall semester. And again, thank you all for your attendance today. We appreciate it. You certainly do not have to stay for the whole board meeting, I assure you, but leave as you desire. And again, thank you all so very much, and I wish you the happiest of the fall semesters to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor Hensley. Again, thank you all for being here. Okay, we will move on to item B and reports, and we're going to have the presentation of the financial statement package for the period ended July 31st. Mr. Richard Cervantes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Hensley, members of the board, now for the report you've all been waiting for through very patiently.
Yes.
We are through the month, this report is through the month of July, 11th month of the fiscal year, 92% of the way through. Our revenues this year through July are $123.4 million. Our expenses are at $100.1 million, which leaves our net $23.3 million. A good portion of that revenue includes $15 million of HERF money, the federal money, which is down from what we had the year before. But in those comparisons, you can see the 123.4 this year compared to almost $129 million last year, so $5.5 million less. But the HERF money that we received last year was somewhere around $8 million more than what we have this year. Our expenses, however, are up, as we've been telling you throughout the year, as we have returned to campus, $100.1 million, almost $94 million last year. It's a $6.1 million increase. The net change in fund balance, $23.3 million this year compared to $35 million last year, leaves us a differential of almost $12 million less. The $23.3 million, as I keep saying, Mr. Chairman, is a really good number. It's phenomenal. And when we look at our revenue comparisons, as we've been telling you, it is on the far right. You can see the other, all of these many of these are influenced by the federal money that we had received in the years. Tuition fees is an example. It actually shows an increase, but as I'll show you in a second, we actually have less money there. Auxiliaries is not. The increase is more, and we are actually realizing more money there. Interest is also up, and then HERF is in the other. So compared tuition and fees compared to actuals, we budgeted $69.2 million. We're at 65.5, which is 95% of the budget. We should be able to go over that. Out of district is the largest one that is the only one actually that is down of the tuition that we have received, considerably so, but both in district and out of state are both positive. So the net result is somewhere around $460,000 less than the year before. Our fee revenue is also down. The general fee is slightly down. Lab course fees is the bulk of the differential here, $1.3 million less in fee revenue. Housing and food service, the two largest auxiliaries, we're reporting we budget $11.1 million. The actual revenue is $7.8 million, 70% of the way there. For those, particularly for housing, it will not have that much difference, so that we're not going to be able to reach the budget for those two particular ones. But the good news is that we're offsetting those with increases, large increases in the other areas as we have returned to campus. Food service is up, our revenue is up, bookstore revenue is up, and parking is up the highest of those three, resulting in the net 1.6, a 20% increase in auxiliary revenue compared to last year. Our total expenses are up $6.1 million. The bulk of that is E&G, as you'll see in a second. We've been saying some of those expenses as we've returned to campus have gone up. You can also see, I wanted to show you that R&R expenses. You look to the far right, that 2021 had zero because we budgeted that out of our unrestricted cash, not out of operations. So all of that is being shown as an increase. The allocation of each revenue dollar, we're getting close to the end of the year, 1 month left, but payroll, you can see, I think this is a testament to the institution's ability to be able to adapt, particularly in 2021, as our revenue dollars went down. Our cost still as a percentage of each revenue dollar stayed relatively proportional to what we had done before. There are some exceptions. You can see travel in 20 was almost 1%, and then half of that in 21, and now it's making its way back up to where, but it's still considerably less. And I think next year we'll be able to recover from all of that. Consumables, the same thing. You see last year 1.73 compared to, it's almost double. It is double this year as we return to campus. Debt service, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Moser is still slightly over the 7%. I think as we go into the last month of August, it'll dip slightly below the 7%. Expense category, salaries and benefits, the percentage there looks greater than what the actual amounts are. It's a slight differential there. The $6.1 million more, most of that is in E&G as well as the R&R. Our operating expenses, $4.4 million, a 5% increase. Academic support has a large amount as well as instruction, but the bulk of that is in auxiliaries as students have returned to campus, particularly food service costs have gone up. Our student cash and refunds in July, the student is $12.7 million. Student financial aid that we received from the Department of Education, $873,000. We did receive student payments of $12.6 million, but we issued student refunds of $770,000. Our other cash receipts in July, a little bit over $3 million. Our state appropriation is the bulk of that, $2.4 million. We're still receiving insurance proceeds from the damages that we experienced last year, but it's getting less and less. We did not have any HERF money that we reimbursed ourselves for, and almost $500,000 in grants, contracts, and property tax. Did want to say something about just for our interest rate. You see interest of $124,000, and we're starting to see those rates go up considerably. The pools, as an example, are somewhere around 1.5%, whereas a year ago, they were less than half of 1%. We were even talking about whether or not we would actually be able to reach our budget of $750,000 at the beginning of the year. And it looks like we're going to go over that number as a result of these rates going up. And right now we're moving some of the monies from the pools to other investments that are giving us much more. 2.75 is the more recent one. And then we're going to be moving some more. Payroll, $5.5 million. So that's pretty consistent. We're still having, as we close out some of these large construction projects, particularly on the Rellis campus, $2.2 million, but also Old Main is in there too. Then you can see on the far right in the yellow, the property purchase for for Washington County, then accounts payable, $1.9 million. So in summary, we have $12.7 million that we received from students, another $3.1 million from other sources. We ended up spending $12.1, left us a net increase of $3.7. We kept the amount that in the bank, but you can see the movement from the pools of $5 million and invested in a CD. Then CD is somewhere around 2.75. We're going to do that again, probably maybe even tomorrow, move some more, maybe $10 million. And the interest rate that we're expecting somewhere around 3%. So that number should continue to go up for us. Unrestricted cash through July is $129 million. The far right, you can see the money that we have available for new projects, $27 million. With 1 month left in the fiscal year, I would expect the revenue would continue to go up, but I would also expect that some of the expenditures for construction in particular, is about $7 million for Rellis, would eat up a bunch of that. We projected about a year ago, very conservatively projected that we would be somewhere around $121 million at year end. So we're doing better than what we had forecasted way back then. The higher education emergency relief funds through the end of July shows, as we've been showing you, the institution funding was the bulk of what was the only part that was left over, $1.8 million. It does look, staff did some number crunching this morning. It does look like we'll be able to use all of that by year end. So HERF money will be completely gone by the end of the year. On the far right, you can see the $1.8 million in the Blinn blue. And the bulk of that that we've spent of that $70 million on the institutional side is the revenue loss down the bottom, the green, $29 million. And I expect that number will be pretty close to 30, maybe even a little bit above. Stand for any questions.
Anyone have any questions? I think we're good. Sorry, we will move on to item C, the institutional enrollment report for summer 2 session. Dr. Becky McBride.
Good morning, Chancellor, Mr. Chairman, and Board of Trustee members. I have the pleasure today to speak to you about Summer 2, which just ended this past Tuesday, August 9th. On the current slide, you can see the comparison from 2018 through 2022. We were able to capture 534 students from last summer. We did not capture 99 students. If you recall, the majority of the classes last summer were distance education, basically online, and some students only prefer that option. With the transition from bringing students back onto campus where we would like them to be for their courses, we would expect to see a reduction in the distance education numbers, as you can see on the slide. Students who enjoy distance education courses either moved on to another college or ended their journey going to college. These students decided to not come to campus for their courses. We expected the number of distance education students to reduce since last summer, most of our courses were online due to the pandemic. Some students have opted to return to campus. And as you can see for Brenham, Bryan, and Rellis, we have a higher number of students who have returned to campus this summer. It is encouraging for us to see the students to return on campus. Of course, that's where we would like all of us to be. As we talk about bringing folks back onto campus, we're doing everything in student services to bring those students to us. We've embarked on an aggressive marketing campaign, which uses the CRM software you approved for us at the last meeting, and I want to thank you for that approval. We are texting, emailing, and calling students. Students who are called include those who have been dropped for non-payment, or they've registered for housing, but they haven't done all the necessary steps they need to get their placement. On the next few slides, we're going to talk about tours, how they've changed in the past year, new student registration, which I'll say NSR for the slang version, and of course, the CRM software that we're using. When you look at campus tours, a couple years ago, of course, we halted all those operations on campus, and so we were reduced to the electronic means. 2 years ago, we were offering small on-campus outdoor tours, and this past year, we have returned to full service. And you can see by campus the amount of tours we had. And for example, when you see Brenham has 578, that's just the number of students. That doesn't include family members that join the student. So the student isn't on the journey alone. As we know, when they come to college, they bring family members and sometimes friends with them. So the 1685 is just the student number, not everyone that's joined them. So I wanted to say that that is something that is encouraging for us as an institution. We do enjoy seeing the family and friend support. As we talk about new student registration, we hadn't been able to offer those sessions since 2019. It was very refreshing to see. I do the welcome session. It's very refreshing to see the students again with their families and their friends come with them. And the number on the screen, as you can see for the Bryan and Brenham campuses, the 380 and the 1387 are the number of students. There were additional people that would come with them to those visits as well. The online version for NSR, we retained from the COVID days. We do have students that come to us quite a distance, as you can imagine, and we wanted to have that convenience there for them. As you can see, we had almost 970 students this summer sign up for that option, and many of them are still emailing and communicating with student services staff. So our outreach is continual with those folks. My last slide here is about Element 451. This is the software that we began using, as you can see, on July 13th, and most recently up through last week, the amount of emails and text messages that we are sending out. As students apply to Blinn College, their contact data is imported daily into the software. And for enrollment purposes, I'm going to give you some examples of the types of campaigns and things we're sending out. So students that they need to make a payment on their account, the payment due dates. When we were in the NSR season, those who needed to register for courses who attended but didn't register for their courses, students who needed to make payments, students with testing and advising holds, financial aid, if we're missing information for their files, we're requesting that, if their book voucher is available, and also when we receive the FAFSA from the Department of Education, that initial assessment as well. So this tool has really elevated our ability to continually and automatically communicate with students, and I believe is going to help us greatly as we move forward as a college. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On element 451, it's got the recruiting aspect to it. Does it also have retention capabilities?
In terms of seeing where the students have gone and where they've dropped off in the process?
No, in terms of retaining students from one semester to the next.
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay, you might want to check in on that. I don't know that much about element 451, but most of these software has both the recruiting and the retention pieces to them.
Yes, sir.
Retention, of course, is really more important than recruitment, as it's cheaper to retain a student than recruit a student. So
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Just curious, I noticed that the distance education number went down for under the 2022. It may, I don't know, it may change by now. I'm not sure, but it seems like it went way up, and obviously during back in 2020, but then it goes down, and it doesn't, and we didn't really replace those numbers elsewhere. And I was just curious if there was some, if you determined a trend or an explanation on distance learning, what's happened there?
Yes, sir. If you recall, in 2020, all of the courses were online. So it increased exponentially because that was the option for students. And as we transition to bring them back on campus, some students, they don't want that option. So they decide to go somewhere else, possibly for an online course.
They don't. Yeah.
Just curious on that same, kind of that same vein. Are, you know, for instance, like Texas A&M, are they offering just online courses over the summer, or do you have to go on campus for them, or are they going to other junior college options potentially, or what are your thoughts on that?
I have a few thoughts. I think it's for some of the students, it's whatever closer to home sometimes too. Like some people are with us, you know, just during the major semesters, then they go home. Some students are only looking for online, so they'll go to another 2-year school. Because we do call campaigns, you know, to students as well. And some students, they said they went, there was a variety of answers, of course. And some of them decided frankly to go home, and some went online, another 2-year school. A&M wasn't really brought up in the conversations we had with students when we called.
Douglas.
Mr. McBride, I have
Yes,
a
sir.
question. I'm hoping it's a timing issue, but under new student registration number of 2,735 that's here, I just kind of compare that to the 17,000 some odd students we
Yes.
have. So over time, so I'm trying, that equates to about 16% of our total student population. So can you explain what's going on here? I'm sure, I just don't think the correlation is right. So can you maybe expand on that?
Sure. The new student registration days are optional. They're not required for students. I know some colleges, they require, they might have a department that only does orientation or registration. They require all their students to come through for that experience. We do not require students. So they make the choice to reach out to us and to come on campus.
Okay, but part of this says online as well.
Yes, that's an online option for those students who weren't physically able to come to Bryan or to Brenham. They could watch the presentation, they could correspond with our staff to get the information about enrolling and registration advising, but they're not required to come.
Okay.
Thank you.
So on that new student, is that for this fall?
Yes, ma'am.
And all of those that are listed are the ones that have registered and are planning to come?
Yes, ma'am. And if they haven't registered, we're using Element to reach out to them to say, hi there, you've come to see us. And then we've also called them as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. McBride.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to move on to item D in reports, annual Blinn College Foundation report. Mr. Sam Summers come to see us today.
While he gets that going, I just want to say thank you for always having us once a year. We're excited to be here again. Really appreciate all your support. So happy to be back. And as I'll mention in a bit, I think this is my last go round presenting here in August. So that should make you excited for me. Susan Myers, who's our executive director of the Blinn Foundation, she can't be here today. I know y'all are all familiar with her. Literally, this was something that she had decades in planning being gone this week. So I promise you, it wasn't a last minute thing. You'll have to ask her on that, but it was decades in the making. But I would like to introduce Sharon. Sharon Lucanis is here with me. She's been our administrative assistant for a number of years and really keeps everything running smoothly. So really appreciate her being here. You may also mention we have an associate director, typically the foundation, Phil Shackelford, who had that role, actually left that position fairly recently. So you don't see that up there. Turning this picture right here was taken when we just started to get back together at the beginning of the last year. So you might see some familiar faces. But what we've done is we've listed all the 2022-23 foundation board members there for you to look at. Hopefully some that you recognize. We certainly appreciate Charles Mosier was in the picture, but has stepped off. We thank you for your time. We're glad to have Douglas back, continue to work with us. We're happy to welcome Rebecca when we get started here next month on another year. So really appreciate that. We're actually welcoming 5 new members, so some new blood. And we will have a new chair, Nancy Berry, who you probably recognize as a former trustee, will be stepping into the chair role. And I'm very excited about that. But every year, come here, I like to always start with just, why we are here. And that all comes down to a commitment to enhance Blinn College. Everything that the foundation does is in that vein. The rest is just specifics. So we really appreciate that opportunity. Personal financial support, our foundation board, 100% contribute to the foundation through their own personal monetary donations. And that's something we're very proud of for sure. Put your money where your mouth is, right? Fundraising, I would have to say that the year has been excellent. I know we're not quite done with it, but just as a sampling of pictures, I'm sorry you have to see me and so many. People in the community say all the time they saw my picture in the paper. And it's like, I didn't do any of the work, but I get the pictures. So hopefully that'll change pretty soon too. But we had 16 new endowed scholarships this year, totaling $580,000. I know y'all have talked about the Washington County Promise Fund. We did receive a pledge for $100,000 to really get that off the ground. And then the emergency student funds, which is something that started a few years back with COVID. We helped 27 students during the year. I know that life to date emergency funds is just under $68,000 that has been raised there. Capital needs, we had $350,000 donated during the year. And then some other fundraising, which included the Schulenburg campus, $60,000, Sealy campus, $23,000, and of course, workforce for $100,000. So all in all, I think it was a very, very strong year for fundraising, which is of course, one of the core activities. Touching a little bit on asset performance. Last year when I was here, we weren't quite done with the fiscal year. That was a great year. We ended with a fiscal year return of 17.62% on our endowments. Of course, as you know, the markets in this fiscal year are a little bit different. I have the May 31st number up there, which is negative 12.2%. But we have had a little bit of a bounce back since May 31st. So I checked yesterday and we're actually down 8.5% year to date. Overall, I do have it, I'm not going to read it, our investment philosophy and objectives, but we're very happy with how the endowment has performed under these market conditions. So given what has happened with bonds and equity markets, we're very pleased with how we're positioned. And then just circling back on the last one, community awareness. As you know, there's a lot of events that happen during the year. One I want to mention, of course, is the alumni and lettermen have their annual clay shoot, which has really had a good life of its own. And this past year raised $109,000. The foundation is supportive of that. But our members do a pretty good job getting to all the events. Hopefully you see them. I know y'all do a good job of getting to events. But they are boots on the ground, trying to raise awareness for all the good things here going on in the college. We certainly appreciate that opportunity and hope we can be a good steward and also assist if there's anything that the trustees or the college would like us to lend a hand to. So with that, I don't think I have anything else unless there's any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Sam, thanks you for your time as the chair of that foundation board. You've done a great job.
I appreciate it, sir.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to item E in reports, the presentation of the Quality Enhancement Plan. Dr. Busicki.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Hensley, Chair Colcourse, members of the board. I would like to introduce to you the team that worked on our Quality Enhancement Plan, which is also known and better known as QEP, which is part of the SAC-COC reaffirmation process, our 10-year reaffirmation process that will happen in 2025. More specifically, in 2024, we will send this information to the off-site committee and for review and feedback. And in 2025, it is presented to the on-site committee. So Dr. Westergaard, who is the chair of this committee, and her team will make that presentation. Thank you. Dr. Westergaard.
Good morning. Dr. Hensley, Chair Colcourse, members of the Blinn College Board of Trustees.
I'm excited to be here this morning and have the opportunity with the team that I'm a part of, to be here to inform you about Blinn College's next quality enhancement plan. A quality enhancement plan, as Dr. Busicki was just mentioning, is something that is required by every higher education institution that receives accreditation from the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges, which is a mouthful. They are typically referred to as SACS-COC. And SACS-COC requires institutions to go through a review and reaffirmation of their accreditation every 10 years. And a quality enhancement plan is just one part of that reaffirmation process that occurs for an institution to have its accreditation affirmed again for another 10-year period of time. But the QEP is an important part of that accreditation process, and the value of it really lies in what the accrediting agency is asking the college to do. And that is essentially, they want the college to look at internal data and identify some aspect of the college that could be improved upon as it moves forward. And so as the college receives a reaffirmation of its accreditation, they also are poised to look forward with a detailed plan of how to improve the college. On the screen, on the slide that is showing, you see a definition of what a quality enhancement plan is from SACS-COC, and they define it as a carefully designed course of action a higher education institution plans to pursue that addresses a well-defined and focused topic related to enhancing student learning and/or student success. And that's what we're here this morning to share with you, is our plan in that regard. What our timeline is at this point, the QEP has been developed. It was presented in the spring to Blinn College's Executive Council, and we're here this morning to make you aware of the next quality enhancement plan. As we move forward, the slide shows you our timeline as we continue to develop the QEP. Beginning in the spring of 2023, we'll continue to organize the idea as it is at this point in time and begin to market the QEP. Now, it's important to realize, typically when we talk about marketing, we're talking about to external constituents. Here, it's the opposite. That marketing is more an internal campaign to make sure that all constituents, stakeholders, and parts of the college are aware of what the quality enhancement plan is going to be. It really is an effort to make sure that everyone is aware, and also to seek buy-in, to sell the value of what the quality enhancement plan is going to do, from faculty, from students, from staff that will be part of implementing the QEP, and also administrators. As mentioned, well, not as mentioned, in the 2 years from now, in the fall of 2024, we will actually shoot to pilot the QEP. This is something that SACS-COC actually recommends. And so we will do a small scale version of the QEP, which allows us to see if the idea is workable. Are there areas that maybe need to be revised to make for a smoother implementation? The other thing that it does is it gives us an initial collection of data to help support the QEP and to be kind of a benchmark as we begin the process. It is also in the fall of 2025 when we have our reaffirmation visit from SACS-COC, where they'll be on site and on our campuses. And it is at that time that the QEP will be presented to our accrediting agency for their approval. If all goes well, then the plan is for the implementation of the full-scale quality enhancement plan to begin on our campuses in the fall of 2026. At this time, I'm going to hand things over to Dr. Kincaid, who's going to talk about the process that has brought us up to this point today. Dr. Kincaid.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity. I want to first thank Dr. Westergaard as the chair of the QEP for her leadership and her support throughout this process. I'm here to share with you today the process by which we selected the QEP at this time. As you can see on the screen before you, we have the committee members, and you can see from that the broad representation across all the constituencies of the Blinn College District that were represented here. For the process, we began with reaching out to academics, student services, staff, students, and the help of the Future Works participants who volunteered to lead some of the breakout sessions, whereby we began with asking a few questions of all of these participants. In total, throughout the breakout sessions, there were 247 participants who contributed to the development of what is going to be today's QEP presented to you. Within those breakout sessions, we started asking, what do we think that Blinn College is currently doing well? What are our successes? Where are our strengths? Then we transitioned the conversations to asking, where do we have room for improvement? We collected the information from all of these participants, and we were able to then decipher from that not only what our strengths were, but where we could direct room for student success and student learning improvement. So we looked at the areas where those participants identified that we needed to improve. We narrowed that down to what is going to be Dr. Westergaard's part of the presentation of what this QEP is going to do. Thank you.
Okay, so the title that we have on this QEP is a safety net for at-risk students. And one of the things I'd say to you, as Dr. Crossan's already said it, it's important to retain students, not only for the college enrollment, but also for the students and the family. And so our goal here is to put that safety net out for those at-risk students. It's an early intervention that supports students with low GPA after 12 credit hours. And 12 credit hours represents one semester. So really focusing in on those students who come to us and after one semester, they've already fallen below that level. This slide kind of shows you exactly what we're looking at, which is that low GPA with less than 12 semester hours, which is one semester. And it's based on some data that we pull, and this data that you see here talks about students who are on probation and suspension. And we have from fall 2018, and you can see those numbers. And what we want to do is work as a college to lower that number so that we're pulling students up where they need to be. We have to slice the pie to get to the students that we can do in the QEP. And so that's where we came to students under 2.0 after just 12 semester hours. That gives us an opportunity to take those students and really provide the support they need to get their GPA up where they need to be and to be on the path that they need to be for that final degree. So we'll measure QEP success. Students have increased in our retention of the population, and that students move above the 2.0. And here's our interventions. They're in 3 areas. We'll have academic interventions. We're going to do mandatory tutoring for this group of students. We're going to provide a success coach. We're going to do peer mentors with some of our more excelled students like PTK, SKD, and some of those students. And then our Education 1300 will serve as a success course. And student service interventions will do intrusive advising, financial aid sessions to make sure they understand what the 2.0 will mean for financial aid. We'll also do a career assessment to get them on a pathway to make sure they're motivated for the program that they're in. And then we want to engage them in student activities. If they're engaged with other students on campus, we believe that will support their success. And then workshops will be presented by faculty, by staff, by all of those who are engaged with those students. And I've given you 3 examples of those, like time management and grit and research skills. And I would say that I want to start with budget. I want you to know that we've looked just at major expenditures, and the college allocates funds based on that SACS requirement for the QEP. And so you can see that the required tutoring for those students is approximately $29,000 per year. That's for that entire year. A success coach for all those students. We're basing it on 300 students. The Career Edge assessment software is $4,000 per year. That software is the one that will get them to look at their talents and their interests and then find that pathway that they need to be on. And then the consumables and marketing, of course, will be another expenditure for that. So with that, I would say I'd ask my colleagues to join me. And if you have any questions, I'll perhaps defer to the more brilliant side of this event.
What is grit?
So of course, education can be challenging in any circumstances, but many of the students who fall under the 2.0 threshold this soon have particular issues with being able to manage so much that is going on, personal stress, definitely the stress and the pressure of their own responsibilities now that they're in this adult world and with all these expectations on them. So the grit that we would work through is how we would present to them strategies for making sure that they have the stick-to-itedness to see through and to face challenges as opportunities to learn and grow, and not as setbacks, and not as often, so many of them unfortunately have heard negative messages throughout their life. I know in faculty, I've heard many times of students who say, I'm here, even though my parents told me I'll never make it, I can't learn, I'm not going to succeed. And so we're there to bolster them and strengthen them by showing them how they can have grit. And I'm probably aware of some of the growth mindset. So within the grit, we would touch on that growth mindset. So to show them that a failure, even a minor failure within class, is not always a complete catastrophe and a total failure, that if they will reach out, we have plenty of resources, that if they will make the determination that they want to do this, reach out to the support that Blinn College offers, that stick-to-itedness, that grit that they will develop, they can learn from those minor failures and turn those into future successes.
I've got just a couple of questions. So students that fall below 2.0 after kind of the initial 12 hours, you guys have been teaching for a long time, and just curious, are these kids that are really trying to succeed, or and I don't know this, but I've heard that if, a lot of kids that get let's say a Pell Grant type scholarship, the incentive is maybe not so great to try that hard because they're just going to maybe try college out, that type of thing. I'm just curious, are these motivated kids? Are these, just in your experience, what are you going to be working with to try to get these kids up above that level?
I think it's a mix of several things. I think there are students that are certainly motivated in that area. And those are ones especially that we want to make sure that we reach. I think some students come, they're just not academically prepared. Maybe their skills academically are not where they maybe need to be to do well. So it is especially students like that are motivated, who do want to succeed, that we want to capture. And we think that the plan will help them be aware of the resources that are available from the college to help them succeed. Now, as far as some of the others, yes, there are other reasons why sometimes students come. Maybe they aren't made the right motivations initially, but that is also part of the strategy with the QEP of the career assessment, and why that software is so important to help them to maybe plug into something. Maybe they didn't initially come with the right motivations and plugged in and wanting to succeed, but maybe through that's an avenue that we can get them interested and plugged in and serious about a degree. And again, maybe retain some of the students or help them to be successful.
I have a question. Good presentation. I'm really looking forward to this QEP, and kudos for everybody. And Pat, thanks for all the work you've done over the years on this and other QEPs. I'm a little bit concerned about the data. I assume when you put up that chart of the 2021, that was fall 21, spring of 22 numbers. Does that sound right? What I'm concerned about is if you just look at the 3 years that you had there, I think go back right there, go back one more, you're already dropping the numbers are already going down. Now I know enrollment also went down over this time. So how are you going to measure that it's successful, that the QEP is successful? To me, that's maybe a little bit difficult because we already see a huge drop there.
Correct. And I think you're right. Enrollment did drop during that time. I think probably that affected those numbers. What we hope to see is that those students who enter the program are retained for the next semester,
Mhm.
and then they'll continue and we'll add more students.
So you're going to cohort those students and follow them through? Is it the plan? Okay.
Yes,
good.
and the exit point for these students would be they get to that 2.0 and they're
Okay.
successful in class. And those that are still below that will stay in the QEP and we'll follow them until we feel like they've got to that successful point. And then we'll add in the next incoming. So it will begin to grow. We're starting with those in that fall of 2020. I think our timeline said we start in that pilot in fall 2025. And in that group of students, what we'll do is we'll find those students who are 12 hours in below 2.0. And we expect that to be about 300.
Good. Well, good luck. Thank you again.
I had just one question. Want to hear, we were saying 300 students. That is hopefully more than one success coach. Is that correct? How's that going?
Well, we're planning that it'll be one success coach in the beginning. Of course, as we continue and the numbers grow, perhaps add another success course and maybe year 2 or 3. I think that's still something that we have to watch to see how that goes. Sorry, did you hear that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Douglas.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. The rest of them only had one, but I've got a couple of questions. But first, kind of follow up on something Dennis brought up, a measuring stick or a goal. You know, we have these numbers that we see here. Is the goal at this point in time to reduce those numbers by 50%, 25%, or is it too early to tell? That's my first question. The second question is, of those who are in this data, what percent might be starting here in developmental classes because we're in the open enrollment environment? What percentage of those are already at risk because they're in developmental classes? And lastly, what happens to Destination Success, our prior QEP? Does it continue or is this replacing that?
I'm going to speak to the Destination Success and then I'm going to let the others join in those other questions. One of the most important thing about the QEP is that you institutionalize it, that you find the strategies that work and then you continue to use those. So from Destination Success, we found that that passport to success is something that we continue in all those developmental courses because we believe that's a strategy that gets them engaged in the college. And then those paired courses was the other part of Destination Success. For us, those co-requisite classes pair the developmental with that English 1301 and then with that success course. And we'll continue to keep those pairings going on. So that has been institutionalized. And then I'm going to let Clay speak to the numbers and the percentage, and then I'll let April speak to the other part of your question.
Remind me the part of specifically with the numbers. Oh, the percentage. There's not a defined goal at this point. I think that is something as we begin, one of the requirements that SAC COC will have is that we submit about a 75-page document that outlines everything. I believe it is at that point as we begin to look at literature that will support the efforts that we're doing, that we probably will get a more defined goal at that point. We are seeking, number one, obviously, anything that helps to shrink any of those students. If we have 250 that we start with and 100 of those end up with GPAs back over the 2.0 mark, that's a huge success. And I think saying that the QEP is working. The other part of that is also to shrink the first slide of data that we had, which is dealing with the total number of students at the college that are below a 2.0 or on probation. We believe that if we catch them early at this 12-hour mark, that this number will shrink as we move forward. And that will be an indication of success from the QEP as well. Does that answer everything that you had as far as the data part of it? Oh, yes, absolutely.
Trustee Bullhart, thank you for bringing that up, and Trustee Crossan also. In terms of percentage, we saw last semester when we came out of COVID, a growth of about 30 to 40% in developmental classes in the humanities department, which are the classes that, so we are in a very, we are receiving students that are very unprepared. And this is a tool to get them early on and give them the tools to continue and to persevere and to retain those students. So the percentages are very high, particularly after COVID. Sorry to interrupt.
Right. So to follow up with that, yes, the pilot is going to be our opportunity to learn from the implementation at a smaller scale, where exactly that metric for success in terms of the program itself would be, in terms of what percentage of students do we need to say that we got across that 2.0 GPA line to then say that this is a measure of success. So the measure of success for the students themselves is to make sure that we get them over that 2.0, because the reason why we chose that were the implications that came with the falling below the 2.0, particularly with the financial aid. Because as you're, I'm sure, well aware, many of the students who come to us at risk are also economically disadvantaged. And so this part of why we went through the process we did, so much converged within those breakout sessions that this particular QEP is going to address capturing a lot of students that would have been lost if we only took one approach. Striking the 2.0 GPA threshold is going to help with the financial aid. It's going to help with persistence, therefore improve our enrollment numbers and retention, and then reduce the numbers that we see here so that we're not losing students. Because unfortunately what happens is many, once they're on probation, they're going to leave and go to a different institution. Many, once they're on suspension, they leave and go to a different institution. So we want to dramatically reduce these numbers and ensure that we're keeping them and that we're providing the support and services that they need. So the co-recs are going to remain in place. That is going to be one place that we do that. The EDUC 1300 is a place that we're going to do that. And the pilot is really going to be what informs us of how we can set that metric for success. Did we answer all of your questions?
Sure.
Okay. Any others?
I have one quick
Yes, ma'am.
question. That educational course, what will it have? Because I know y'all offer one now that has some, is it going to be different?
Those students who are in that EDUC 1300 will have peer mentors that meet with them as well. So that'll be another strategy that we'll put with that, and they can connect with them about that. But you're right, we do offer that course, and we do require that 1300 of any student in the co-requisite because we believe those are at risk and need that additional support. So there'll be additional strategies. So, but it is the same course, and it's
Okay.
tuition based.
Last question that I had, on the, I think it's a great program. If we can catch these at-risk students and show them how to be a student, they're going to have an opportunity to be successful. Is there a SACS COC reason that we're waiting 4 years to potentially try to implement this program?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned a minute ago, the reaffirmation process is on a 10-year cycle. And so one of the lessons we learned from the last QEP is maybe allow a little more time in the planning and development stage. And so we started pretty early so that we could get a plan, and there's still lots of work to be done. It allows time for revision and thoughts on that process. Our reaffirmation of accreditation begins or should be in December of 2025. And then everything kind of leads up to that point. And then once we are reaffirmed with our accreditation, then the implementation of this quality enhancement plan is required at that point. And then SACS COC will require a 5-year impact report to look at results. And of course, as you go, you'll be reporting data as well and looking at things with the accrediting agency, but they want a 5-year impact report. And so some of it's just the timing of the accreditation process kind of really sets some of the markers. SACS does not require the pilot, but they do recommend it. And so we're kind of trying to move that direction and certainly implement that this time around with a QEP, whereas the last time we did not. Again, just trying to do the best that we can and to start getting the ball rolling a little earlier in that process.
Okay.
Chair Kalkos,
Yes,
one
sir.
last comment. I happened to be around the last time we had to go through SACS reaccreditation and everything else. And And I found at that particular point in time that there's an inordinate amount of work that goes into the QEP. I think Dennis, you were part of the administrative staff at that time. And as I do recall, we didn't get as early a start as we have here. And we ran into some deadlines that were, caused us some angst, I would say. So I would like to congratulate you on your early start. I can't believe Dr. Westergaard is bailing out, but okay. But I think y'all need to be commended for getting such an early start, and I'm looking forward to seeing the results of, and you haven't named it yet either, have you? Like Destination Success.
And we want to allow Richard Bray time in his office to really have time to incubate that
Okay.
idea.
So I think we started with a safety net, but perhaps in his wise use of marketing, he'll come up with a better slogan for us. But
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
If I could just quickly speak to that. So one, we cannot neglect the role that Dr. Busicki has had in making sure that we really did learn the lessons from the past. So one, Dr. Busicki was quite motivated to make sure that we started on this early and that we've touched every single aspect of the college, because again, the whole point of the QEP is to institutionalize. So all of the stakeholders, all of the constituencies will be touched by the QEP. And one of the most important that Clay mentioned was that pilot. So it's often a cliche in higher education that the way to show that you're not serious about something is to offer a pilot. But this is an instance where really the pilot is going to be vital and instrumental as an information tool to collect the information that we need to make the adjustments that are required and move forward with a successful QEP that SAC COC will approve and that we really can implement at the full scale for the college district.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you guys very much for your presentation. Okay, we will move on to item number 5 on the agenda. Consent items. All items listed on this portion of the agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Trustees and will be enacted upon one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a trustee so requests, in which event the item will be removed from consent and considered in discussion and possible action. Trustees receive agenda materials in advance of the meeting to prepare for the business to be conducted. I would entertain a motion and a second to.
So moved.
Move for, and seconded by Trustee Benke. The Texas Education Code, Section 5(1.923) requires that if a local public official or an individual related to the local public official has a substantial interest in a business entity, the official shall disclose before a vote or decision on any matter involving the business entity the nature and extent of the interest and shall abstain from further participation in the matter. I have such an interest in regards to agenda item 5B. My wife serves on the board of directors of Citizen State Bank based in Summerville, Texas. Because of this, I hereby recuse myself from any discussion or official action relating to agenda 5B and specifically exclude agenda 5B from my vote on the consent agenda. So with that, I look for a vote. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, let's move on to discussion and possible action items. Item A, adoption of a resolution for the 2022 tax rate. Mr. Cervantes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Hensley, members of the board. I note the audience has diminished from when we started. I hope it's not anything to do with my tax discussion. We did meet. We had received some information from the Washington County Appraisal's Office back in July, late July. And then we met last week with the Budget Audit Investment Finance Committee and discussed some of the options that we had available to us. There there were quite a bit of changes, particularly from the rate from what we have currently to where it looks like we're going. And a big portion of that has to do with the appraisal values going up so high. And for the no new revenue rate, as an example, if your rates or your appraised value is going to go up, in order to get the same sort of tax that you have this year, you have to have the rates go down considerably, and they have. So for instance, right now we're at 0.051, and you can see there under the no new revenue rate, it would bring us down to 0.0377. That's the floor, I call the floor, and that's the same amount of tax revenue, estimated amount that we will receive this year. And if the board moves in that direction, those would be the amount of revenues that we would hope to expect for the institution. On the voter approval rate, which is the ceiling, it too has dropped below the 0.0513 of where we are right now. But it, of course, would generate more revenue just because the appraised values have gone up, as well as the rates would go up if the board went in that direction. So when we discussed it last week, the committee seemed to be more inclined, absolutely inclined to go with the first option there, which is to vote and adopt the no new revenue tax rate. And if the board so chooses now to go in that direction, there wouldn't be any other further action that would be required. You would vote today, and that would be the end of that. If the board, just for future purposes, decided to go in a different direction, it would require a lot more public hearings that we would have to have, and we would have to advertise all of that information in advance. But it doesn't look like we're going to be moving in that direction. I did add a column. We added a column in this slide from the discussion that took place at the BAIF, the middle column. There was a suggestion there, well, what if we go somewhere in between as opposed to the floor and the ceiling? And the amount that was mentioned was 0.0425. And just for us to show the board, it'd be pretty close to $250,000 that would be generated. You just see the slight difference between the annual on the bottom portion of it, the annual tax be $4,250 on a $100,000 home, as opposed to $3,773, which is a no new revenue rate. So this is the amount that, or this is the option one that the Budget Audit Investment Finance Committee is recommending. Administration is in support of the 0.0377. I will just say that I certainly have heard for the first time some more community members talk to me about the taxes and all the costs associated with living in Washington County, the increases, and it does seem inordinate to me. So I really am a supporter. I'm glad the board is moving us in this direction, even though it will cost the institution a little bit of money, but we're in a good position right now. You can see on the far right, the 0.0513 of where we're at right now, and then the two rates. And you see in history, I think in history, that 0.0377, I don't know how far it would have to go back, but at least 25, 30 years that I can see, we've not been that low. That's kind of where we're stuck. I've looked at other institutions looked at the other institutions that we have in Washington County. We're still the lowest. I know, Dr. Krause, that you've seen all this information before a few times. So we're still the lowest of all the entities that receive revenue. And then compared to the 50 community colleges, the far right, the Blinn, we're the lowest of the rates. That red will go down some. I would expect the average, which is the yellow, would also go down. I think this is similar occurrence for other counties across the state of Texas with the appraised values going up. I don't know yet what that is. You can see this is 2021. The three primary sources of revenue, as we've suggested before, we have a inordinate amount of revenue that we are dependent on. The student revenue, 72%. That's for auxiliaries as well as tuition and fees. This is a budget. The property taxes is somewhere around 2%, and the state appropriations is 26%. The only anomaly here, as you can see in 2021, you can see the top part with the tuition and fees, as well as some of these others have been impacted by the HERF money. which is the only one that is going up in 2020 and 2021. The other part that I wanted to bring to your attention, I may not have stressed this as much at the Budget Audit Investment Finance Committee. This is Brenham campus alone, and it does not take all of it. It does not, $6.3 million is not all the cost for the campus. It's strictly for maintenance and the operating costs associated with the, not personnel. Wouldn't have my personnel cost as an example. And so we're generating somewhere around $2.3 million. And that's the cost associated with the maintenance and operations. So with that, Mr. Chairman, if the board supports this rate, we would need the board to adopt a resolution that would place a proposal to adopt a rate of 0.0377.
Any questions or comment from the board? I think it was very apparent in our budget meeting the other day after much discussion with what's going on in our country and the struggles that people are having just to pay their bills, that Blinn being blessed financially and continuing to be successful, we pretty much decided that we would go with the no revenue tax rate. So with that, I would entertain a motion that the Board of Trustees approve and adopt a resolution to set a tax rate of 0.0377, which is the no new revenue tax rate. Trustee Bohart. Trustee Kraus in seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, trustees.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to the executive session portion of our meeting in accordance with 551.071, 551.072, and 551.074. And why don't we take about a 10-minute break, and then we will begin. It is 11:53. Good. It was good. Breaks in